In the city, Paul walks around gathering supplies when the warning sirens start to sound. He quickly runs through the deserted streets, hiding when necessary, and fleeing from all the screams and sounds of destruction happening around him. As the city fills with black smoke, Paul arrives at a secluded house in the countryside, where he finds two abandoned babies, whom he picks up and tells that everything will be okay. 15 years pass, and the boys have grown strong and healthy. Every day they follow the same routine. During the day, they go out to gather supplies, but hide completely when night falls. As soon as the sun begins to disappear, Joseph closes all the windows with wooden boards and calls the dog Rocco inside the house. Paul waits outside until he sees Thomas return and scolds him for being late. Thomas explains that he likes to help the neighbors, the Rose family, who have a farm nearby. Then the three make sure to close all doors and windows before eating. Paul scolds Thomas again, saying that if he's ever late again, he won't be allowed to leave the vicinity of the house anymore. Joseph makes fun of his brother because of this, and an argument soon turns into a real fight. But Paul immediately separates them, and reminds them that they are men, not animals. After eating, Paul watches his sons playing chess, but gets distracted when Rocco starts scratching and making noise on the floor. Seeing this as a sign of danger, Paul and Thomas go downstairs, and are startled by sudden knocks at the door. It seems the monsters are trying to force their way in, so they quickly hold the door to prevent it from being broken. There's a lot of noise and banging for several moments until the monsters give up and leave. Thomas criticizes Joseph for not helping with the door, but Joseph shows that he was paying attention to understand how they behave. There were 3 attacks. The first lasted 10 seconds. The second was 20, and the last was only 1 second. Joseph believes the first attack was a mistake. First was a test, and the second was the real attempt to get in, while the third was just an angry knock. The next day, they look at the door and see all the claw marks in the wood. The door won't survive the next night. So Paul and the boys go out to look for wood to make it stronger. They bring all the materials they found back home, and while Thomas cuts the wood, Paul checks on Joseph, who is doing something in the workshop. After Paul insists a lot, Joseph admits that he's been trying to make a car because he's tired of feeling trapped and afraid. However, he can't get it to run. Paul is impressed and takes a look, quickly making some changes that finally make the car work. Excited, Paul takes the boys for a ride to show them how to drive. They return home after an hour of driving, and Paul warns that the windows still need to be reinforced, so he sends the boys to the river to get materials. Thomas got angry because it had been agreed that he could go to the farm that day, but Paul said there was something more important to do. The 2 brothers left by car, and Thomas started complaining to Joseph about it, saying that Paul had only taken Thomas along to take care of his brother. Joseph didn't think he needed care, so they had an argument again. Thomas got out of the car when they passed near Rose's farm and asked Joseph to come back and pick him up on the way back. At home, Paul finished making the door more resistant and stopped to smoke alone near the waterfall. While looking around, he saw a dark and scary hole in the rocks. At that moment, Joseph went to the river and tied himself to the car before going down in an old abandoned boat to look for useful things. Inside a cabinet, he found a sensual photo, which surprised him for a while. Then he looked further inside and suddenly got a fright when a cloud of little bugs came out of a pile of trash. They flew around him and tried to land on his skin, so he had to get out of there quickly. At the farm, Thomas helped the family with the work, but it soon became clear that the main reason for him to go there was Charlotte, the owner's daughter. It was obvious that the 2 young people liked each other, and they went for a walk together around the farm. Charlotte showed Thomas a rope tied to a tree, telling him that when she was little, she could only play outside if she was touching the tree, so she would tie herself up to have more space to run while still being connected to the tree. They also played a game where they told crazy ideas about what had caused the end of the world. When it was time for Thomas to leave, Charlotte gave him a very tight hug. The sun was starting to go down, so the 2 boys needed to move. Paul returned home and was worried when he found Rocco, but neither of the boys. Joseph returned to the car and at first it didn't work, but after trying several times, he managed to get the car running. Thomas was running as fast as he could and slipped, so he ended up falling into a crack in the ground. When Joseph arrived at the agreed point to pick up his brother, he didn't see Thomas nearby and just continued on. After he got home and told his hospital, Paul told him to go inside and close everything while he and Rocco looked for Thomas. In the hole, Thomas woke up with his body badly injured. Using a lighter, he started looking around and was shocked to see a creature stretching through a hole in the wall. It even screamed, which was heard by Paul and Rocco. Moving slowly, Thomas took a small knife and stabbed the monster's hand, making it go back into the hole. But when Thomas moved away, a second creature appeared from above and grabbed his face. Thomas had trouble breathing, but before he could faint, Paul arrived and pulled the monster back to kill it quickly. After making sure Thomas was okay, Paul and Rocco found a tunnel that led directly to the crack. It was dangerous to run through the forest at that time, so they decided to stay in the hole until dawn to protect themselves and close the entrance. They could hear the creatures coming through the hole, so they prepared a flare. But the ground started to shake. What happened was that the monsters were now moving underground and trapped the group in the crack by covering the exit with dirt. While Rocco kept barking and the crack didn't stop shaking, Paul told his son and the dog to move away while he put the flare inside the hole that was opening in the ground. When the creatures tried to stretch out, Paul made a small explosion that unfortunately caught him too. In the house, Joseph heard many strange noises and started thinking of a plan. Minutes later, he sat in front of the main door with a rope tied around his neck. When the door opened, he heard the sound of it. Joseph was tied to his chair and pretended he was sleeping. Soon, a creature moved the wood covering a hole in the door and stretched inside, making its claw grow to test if Joseph was really sleeping. When the boy didn't move, the creature entered. But Joseph showed he was pretending and pulled the rope. A trap falls from above, immediately trapping the strange being. Happy with what he did, Joseph covers the cage with a sheet and goes to bed. When day breaks, he gets worried because the others still haven't returned, so he takes the car to go after them. At that moment, Thomas managed to dig the dirt that had fallen to free the entrance again and is pulling his injured father out. Rocco also comes out and follows the sound of the engine to find Joseph and show where the family is. The two brothers soon join together to take Paul to the car, and then to bed at home. While talking about what to do, Thomas finally sees the trap and lifts the sheet, making the creature go crazy. Joseph quickly puts the cloth back, saying that the light hurts the creatures. Then they take care of Paul's injuries, while Joseph tells them that last night the creature took 8 seconds to enter, the fastest time so far. He's also sure there was a second creature that left. Their behavior is changing very quickly, and Joseph thinks something is wrong. Thomas says the creatures are smart. Yesterday they killed several in the hole, and maybe they came here for revenge. Because Charlotte said they almost never appear on the property. Joseph doesn't believe Thomas killed anything. He thinks only Paul did it. To show he's right, Thomas tries to kill the creature that's trapped. Joseph tries to stop him, because he wants to study the animal. And in the fight, the monster manages to escape, quickly hiding under the bed. When it finally appears, Rocco starts making noise at it, so the monster prepares to attack. Joseph runs to hold the creature, and Thomas then cuts its head off with an axe. Still wanting to know more, Joseph takes the body to the workshop and starts opening it while Rocco and many insects watch. No matter how much he cuts, he can't better understand what it could be. Then Thomas tells him they should take Paul to Charlotte's house, because they have a better place and real medicine. Joseph doesn't think the Rose family will help them, but Thomas forces him to go along. The brothers put Paul back in the car and go to the property, where Charlotte's parents show up. The parents show that Joseph was right. They don't have enough medicine to give, so they don't want to receive someone so badly injured. Charlotte complains, but nobody listens to her. But her parents only let Thomas stay, which would leave more things for Paul and Joseph at their house. Joseph soon leaves, and when Thomas goes after him, they fight, and Joseph blames Thomas for the death that's coming to their father. Angrily, Thomas throws his brother to the ground and starts squeezing his neck, but when he sees what he's doing, Joseph soon gets in the car and leaves with his unconscious father. So Thomas stays with the family at the property. Later, Charlotte shares real good food with Thomas and shows him some of her things, which Thomas had never seen before. The two young people spend a good moment and kiss, but Charlotte's father appears and sends his daughter to another room. On the way back home, Joseph sees the sheep running in fear and mounds of dirt everywhere, which means the creatures are moving underground. When he gets home, he sees a dirt path near the wall. So he's afraid that the monsters might be under the house. After taking care of his father, Joseph goes to the workshop and starts gathering things to make a new plan. He also starts closing all the windows, and while walking through the house, he falls when he steps on a rug. There's a hole under it, so he realizes the monsters are already inside the house. At the property, Charlotte finds Thomas messing around in the kitchen. He's still worried about his father, so he wants to find some medicine and leave. Charlotte gives him the medication, and he's grateful, giving her a hug while saying he'll come back, not knowing someone is listening to everything. Thomas runs out, but when he's almost at the gate, a property worker points a gun at him, saying he was stealing. Thomas gets very nervous and tries to say that Charlotte had given him the medicine, but the worker doesn't believe what he's saying. All the employees gather and take Thomas to the garage, where they tie him up and put loud music on, so nobody can hear what they're going to do to him. They hold Thomas's legs, and one of the men prepares to shoot them. But at that moment, a hole appears under him, and he falls inside, making the shot go wrong. The other workers run to see what happened, and a creature jumps out of the hole. Inside the big house, Charlotte's parents wake up when they hear a strange noise. The father takes a candle to see what's happening, but a creature enters the room and goes after him. The candle falls to the floor, and soon a fire starts, while the monster jumps from the father to the mother, wanting to kill them both. The father manages to pull the creature back, and the mother runs out of the room to look for her daughter, but the monster jumps on her before she could go far. The creature moves to change shape again and starts vomiting on the woman before attacking her. From her room, Charlotte hears when both parents are killed. When the noise stops, she leaves the room and gets very scared when she sees a blood stain on the floor, which she follows until she finds the creature in the bathroom. She finds the creature in the bathroom, carrying her mother's body on its back. In the garage, the men are trying to fight against the creatures, but aren't succeeding. One after another, they are killed. And those who manage to get out are also followed, while more creatures keep appearing. The garage soon catches fire, and Thomas manages to knock down the furniture where he was tied, breaking the wood to free his hands. At that moment, a creature finds him, but before it can attack, Charlotte knocks it down. Then the two young people run out, and Thomas sees the house on fire. Charlotte tells him her parents died, so they decide to go to Thomas's house. Going back to Joseph, he throws a bunch of furniture in the hole, trying to buy some time. Then he looks at his father, who is unconscious, and kisses his forehead before preparing for the fight. The hole in the door suddenly opens, but it's just Thomas and Charlotte. Joseph says he needs Thomas's help, but their conversation stops when Paul finally wakes up. He soon takes the medicine and tells his sons not to stop fighting. Joseph tells the others his plan, and they gather all the fuel cans they find in the garage, while Rocco keeps making noise to warn of the coming danger. The group also pushes an old freezer into the house. Then Thomas and Charlotte start closing all the remaining windows, while Joseph makes a pile of furniture and pours all the fuel on top. On top of that, he also puts all the explosive objects he could find, and one of his father's cigarettes, which is burning slowly. Suddenly, the pile that was covering the hole starts to shake. And at the same time, a creature comes down the chimney in the room where Paul is. Another monster comes out of the hole, and when it passes through a door, Thomas stabs it from behind. The creature soon retaliates, but Thomas gets the knife back and stabs it in the head, managing to really kill it now. A third one goes after Charlotte, and she quickly knocks it down with a shot. At that moment, the two quickly run to find Joseph, and all together they go back to pushing the freezer, but suddenly the door opens behind them, revealing Paul standing there, all covered in blood after having eliminated the creature from the fireplace. Paul takes Charlotte's pistol and fires several times at the floor, trying to hit the creatures that were underneath. But there were too many monsters, and soon they appear in the hallway, running towards him. Paul gives a strong kick to the first one to make noise, and the weight ends up making most of the creatures fall to the ground. Some of these things still stood up, but the boys run to finish them off, before they could hurt Paul, who is surprised seeing how well the three work together. Then the three boys and Rocco run towards the freezer, instead of going with them. Paul closes the door and stays there to give the group time to escape. Everyone hides inside the freezer, while Paul remembers that day when he held the babies carefully, telling them everything would be okay. A new crowd of these creatures appears, and Paul gets their attention, until the pile of furniture finally explodes, making the entire house collapse and start burning. The freezer starts rolling and continues rolling for many minutes. When it finally stops moving, the boys come out and desperately search through the remains of the house for Paul, but a creature suddenly jumps out. The group runs to the car and drives away, while the creature follows them all on fire. Charlotte's shots don't help at all, so when the creature gets too close, she hits it with the pistol and makes it fall. A few miles later, the group stops the car and looks at the starry sky, which they had never seen before, because they always stayed home during the night. The next morning, the group returns to where the house was and decides they don't want to build the same place again. After taking anything useful they could find, they bury all their loved ones and make a final goodbye. Then the three young people and Rocco leave in the car, hoping to find new people and a new place to live. And so, the movie ends. Thank you for reaching this part of the video. If you like it, please subscribe and hit notification bell. Until next time, see ya.